Welcome to the Soulcery Podcast, your sacred space to delve into spiritual tools, topics, and practices that will illuminate your path of soul remembering and healing. I'm your host, Lígia Costa, a soul guide, alchemist, soul writing coach, and the creator of the T.R.U.S.T Pathway. I'm deeply grateful to have you here with me. Together, we will embark on a profound exploration of self-discovery and healing, unlocking the secrets that lie within. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Soulcery Podcast. I'm Lígia Costa, your host and guide on this journey towards self-healing and soul awakening. And today I would like to delve into a topic that is both powerful and transformational. And that is about remembering your truth. And I found this very, very profound and beautiful because I am a believer that we don't become anything. Even throughout our healing journeys and the inner work that we do, with the intention to heal past wounds and maybe go back to past lives where that wounding started. I know that a lot of people say that it's for you to become your higher self or the best version of yourself. I believe that we don't become anything. I believe we remember who we truly are. We remember our essence, our soul, pure identity. And that's why I felt it was so important to cover this topic here on the podcast. Freeing ourselves from the stories of our past that caused inner suffering and that still block us from moving forward is the key to being grounded and healing. Because as children, we are like sponges, right? We soak up all the information around us. We inherit not only the gifts and the good teachings from our parents, but also their baggage. And we do it so unconsciously. And that is what is called the conditioning, right? Is when our parents' baggage, their own wounding, their own trauma, their own experiences, limitations, limiting beliefs are passed on to us. Not that they do it consciously. We do it with our children too, right? But is how the baggage just moves from one generation to another. And we still carry a heavy suitcase packed with fear, with trauma, and limiting beliefs that are not just ours, right? And most times we carry these things believing it's ours, when in reality it's our ancestors' baggage and fears and limitations. And as I mentioned here before on the podcast, we carry up to 7 generations of trauma in our DNA. And these unseen wounds, these unconscious fears and beliefs keep us from living our potential to the fullest. And what it does is that impact us in such a deep way. It impacts our behaviors, our habits, our emotions. And most times we are not even aware of this. And that's why it is important, becoming aware of these inherited patterns is the first step. It's when we recognize these behaviors, these habits, and these emotions that we can start to take responsibility for them and to change them. That's when we can really break that cycle and don't let that baggage pass on to our future generations. Unfortunately, many people make the mistake of bottling up their feelings, of, getting stuck in the, I've always been this way, that mindset, or I'm too old to change, or I've always been this way, or this is who I am. And although it seems that we are just being empowered when we say these things and that we kind of don't care about what other people think of us, deep down we do. And we don't realize that actually we are adopting a victim mentality. And this is just a response of, the deep fears of being rejected and not being loved. And so we just, say these things that, I've always been this way. I don't care about what other people think. I'm too old to change. And in a way that, we want to mask our own feelings, like we are really just bottling up how we truly feel. And we want to portray that we don't really care, but deep down we do. And deep down we are just not dealing with these emotions. And so when we do that, we can live our entire lives without the curiosity that it's needed to make changes for ourselves and then for our families. Now, it's also important to note that taking responsibility for your emotions, for your actions, and for your thoughts doesn't mean that you are to blame for what has been passed down to you, right? It just means that you now have the opportunity to break the generational cycle and to discover who you truly are, free from fear, from trauma, and from the limiting beliefs that were passed on to you. And the way to do this is to release the blame you might be holding towards your family. And I know this is a huge one. It's so natural to, when we start having this awareness around why we feel the way we feel, why things happened in our lives, or what happened exactly in our lives, and then we realize actually it's not my fault, it was never my fault. It's so easy and so natural to blame our parents or our carers for what happened, and I've been guilty of that. But we have to understand at some point that actually they did the best that they could with what they knew and with their own baggage of behaviors and traumas. Most of our parents come from a different generation where talking about these things wasn't a thing. It wasn't natural. It was not well received, maybe not accepted at all. And they might have known that reality for a long time and thinking, yeah, certain things happened to me, or the way my parents, our grandparents or great-grandparents raised us that way, and my siblings, and we grew up okay. And there is no acknowledgement of actually, no, they were not okay. And now we can see that certain behaviors they had or have are a result of that emotional baggage that they never acknowledge they have. And they see it as it was the way we were raised and we turn out okay. But because we have awareness around ourselves, we can see that in them now. And that's very powerful, because when we have this sort of awareness, we actually have compassion towards them. We kind of feel like, yeah, you didn't know any better. That's what you knew. And it's not like they did it on purpose. They just didn't know a different reality. So, yeah, recognizing that these patterns were passed on unconsciously and that you now becoming conscious of them. And because now you are conscious, you can be the person that will change the direction of this cycle. It doesn't have to carry on like this, because even though your parents didn't know any better, they were not aware of these behaviors or traumas, and they think till this day that is the way they were raised, and everyone was raised that way at that time. So they didn't have the capacity to even question that or change it. Now you do, for yourself and for your children, for your grandchildren, and for your future generations. But I do understand, until you get to that point of accepting that the way you were raised was a byproduct of how your parents were raised, and you develop that compassion. I know that until you get to that point, your emotions will be all over the place, and you kind of will go through something similar as the stages of grief. You will, until you get to the acceptance and compassion, you will feel anger, you will feel frustrated, you will blame yourself, you will blame them. And that is just a natural process, is how the healing works. And it's important to remember that when you are navigating these emotions, that you do not suppress them. Let them arise, and then if you don't have anyone to talk to confide to, or if you struggle even to open up to someone that is close to you or a therapist, maybe consider releasing those emotions onto paper. And you can begin by noticing with curiosity what actions, what behaviors, what false core beliefs may have traveled down your family line to you. And this is not a one-time process. We know that healing is an ongoing process. It will last a lifetime. So yeah, it requires ongoing effort to peel away those layers and discover new false core beliefs that need challenging and that need reprogramming. So getting into the habit of creating space to go inwards for reflection is crucial, because reflection allows you to gain amazing insights about yourself, about your desires, about your fears, your behavior, and your triggers, as well as the world around you. That's when you start noticing those behaviors and those limiting beliefs in your own parents and maybe your siblings and the other people around you, your partner, your friends. It doesn't mean that you have to do anything about it, but noticing those things in others makes you develop a sense of compassion, which will be very, very helpful in one of the stages of the healing process, because that's when you kind of forgive your upbringing and you forgive your parents or your carers for what happened with you. So reflecting on your past achievements, your previous goals, the lessons that you learned will help you to see where you were at the beginning of this inner work and healing journey and where you are now. Because these insights will help you understand which illuminated and shadow archetypes you might be unconsciously embodying. And if you're not familiar with the archetypes, Carl Jung, which was an amazing psychologist, and also he was highly sensitive. He was a highly sensitive person, and he also could have premonitions through his dreams. He was just this amazing person. And he believed that we all possess archetypes of personality, which are hereditary parts of our beings. They are passed on through our family lines. And these archetypes represent behavior and emotional patterns, as well as ancestral patterns and religious and societal and even cultural symbols that are part of the collective unconscious. So these archetypes are kind of divided into the golden aspects, the illuminated aspects, and the shadow aspects that can teach us a lot about our own personalities, our triggers, and our strengths. So each archetype has its own quirks, desires, and deep fears that are embedded in our soul's DNA. So by learning and understanding these archetypal parts of ourselves, we can tap into their strengths, and we can also recognize what is actually holding us back. And when we understand which sort of archetype we are embodying at a certain point in our life, we can embrace the parts of us that we often hide, dismiss, or reject, and heal the core wounds that trigger each archetype so that we can live a more aligned life and in flow. Now, as a foundation of my work in guiding people to heal themselves and to find their soul's calling, I focus on 8 archetypes that I recreated based on Carl Jung's teachings and the major arcana in tarot. And these are what I call the soul archetypes. So we do have the illuminated, the golden archetypes, and then the shadow. So in the soul archetypes that I created, we have the mystic as being the golden archetype, and then its shadow is the martyr. And then we have the alchemist as the golden archetype, and its shadow is the betrayer. The sage as a golden archetype, its shadow is the victim. And then we have the sovereign as the golden archetype, and its shadow is the child. So understanding and working with these archetypes allow us to live a more authentic life, guided by our soul and in trust as well with the universe, in trust that everything that happens for us and not to us. And by witnessing the archetypes that are activated within us, we can heal the core wounds and unlock our true potential. I do have a course coming up around these 8 archetypes, where I explain how both of the golden archetypes and the shadow archetypes show up in our lives. As soon as I have details about the course being finished, I will put the information in the show notes of this episode. Remembering your truth is such a profound journey of self-discovery and healing, and it involves freeing yourself from the past. It involves breaking the generational cycle. And also, it involves embracing your archetypal strengths and shadows. When you accept and embrace the shadow parts of yourself, you don't give them the power away anymore. You can work with them. You can witness when you are leaning into the shadow archetypes and having the awareness of what is triggering you, what is your behaviors, so that you change that. This process will guide you to live a more aligned and fulfilled life that is in tune not only with your soul's calling, but also with your true essence. And that's when you start remembering who you are at the soul level. Before I love you and leave you, I will pull a card from the T.R.U.S.T journaling deck. And the card that I pulled is from the Unravel suite. And the soul inquiry is, when have I felt whole? What makes me feel whole? When have I felt whole? What makes me feel whole? And the affirmation is, happiness is my birthright. I love this. I love it so much, because understanding what makes us feel whole, or in which situations we felt whole in the past are a pure indication of who you are at a soul level, what completes you, what makes you you. And that is remembering your truth. So as we mentioned in this episode, creating space for reflection, writing down with curiosity, I would like to invite you to reflect on these soul inquiries and see what comes up for you. I hope this episode was insightful and I hope it helped you. And always remember to stay curious, stay reflective, and always stay true to your soul's calling. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Soulcery Podcast and for holding space for this conversation. It is truly magical to be able to walk with you on this journey of soul healing and inner transformation. If you resonated with this episode and found it valuable, I would be grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes. Your feedback helps me reach more souls searching for guidance and healing. For more guidance and soul wisdom to support soul awakening women through the journey of alchemy, please visit my website www.lígiacosta.co.uk. Love and healing to all. See you on the next one.